This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 96.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of the Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 96, and it's a very special episode because I'm bringing back an awesome guest. Enjoy today's episode. Okay, hi everyone. In this episode of Extra Paycheck Podcast, I'm bringing in a guest that I had almost a year ago on episode number 54. His name is Brock McGoff. And Brock, for those who somehow missed episode 54, which I recommend highly listening to, can you once again give us a little introduction about yourself and what is it your main business right now?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me back. My name is Brock McGoff, and I run a couple of websites. My main website is called The Modest Man, and it's a style blog geared toward shorter guys. And that's been my main source of income for the past year or so since I went full-time with it. And then actually, since we spoke last time, I started a new website called Full-Time Blog. And that's where I'm teaching other people, kind of focusing on style and fashion bloggers, but teaching other bloggers how to speed up the growth and monetize their site.
Mm-hmm. Sounds really good, Brock, and we'll get to that website eventually. Right now, I'd like to ask you a few things about The Modest Man, because when I had you on this podcast, I released the episode in April of 2016, but we recorded it at the very beginning of the year, and we were mostly talking about 2015, and you mentioned back then that your website, The Modest Man, generated a revenue of a little over $35,000, if I'm not mistaken, for the year of 2015. However, 2016 was a lot bigger for you. Could you share a little bit on that? Update us on those numbers and what's been happening with The Modest Man.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, 2015 was a big year for me. It was kind of the year that convinced me that I could probably do this full time, but I wasn't there yet. And so that year was the whole year of 2015 was about the revenue for the year was about $36,000. And by the way, I'm open with the I'm transparent with the income for the business. So I do income reports. So I'm kind of open with talking about the money side of the business. And then 2016, when I did start doing, the blog full time for the whole year, which was the first year that I've done it full time for the whole year without any side jobs or anything. Income rose quite a bit, and it was for the whole year it was about $89,000. So I think part of that is definitely because I had more time, was focusing on it 100%. And then also grew certain revenue streams a lot last year.
Mm-hmm. So 89,000, that's, coming very, very close to that, a magical six-figure that a lot of us are talking about. But it's almost $100,000, man, from one blog in 1 year. That's really awesome. And could you maybe elaborate on how you've been working on those income streams? Or why do you think such a growth happened? Because from 35 or 36 to 89, that's almost triple the income. That's like a really, really huge difference in a relatively short time frame. What do you think has contributed the most to that growth?
I think that there are a couple things, but I think the theme is basically getting help from other people versus trying to do it all myself. So two examples of that in 2016 are, first of all, I started, I partnered with basically an ad network called Ad Thrive, and I'm letting them handle all of my banner ad, like display ad inventory that's not directly sold. So sometimes I'll sell ad space to like a sponsor, to a brand, and it's a direct sale. So they send money and I place their banner ad on the site. But most of the ads on the site, like I think a lot of sites are, I guess you could call indirect, or indirect, ad inventory. So it's basically managed by, an ad network, and they use an ad server to do that. So they have relationships with all the major ad networks like Google and, Amazon, and they basically sell inventory for you. And so since that's their job, that's what they do all the time, they really understand that world. And so they were able to take my ad inventory and make a lot more money off of it than I could. And the measure of that is called RPM. So it's like, what's your revenue per 1,000 views? And they were able to increase that from say $2 to $7. So that was one of the big drivers of, increased ad revenue in 2016. And then the other one, again, falling under the theme of getting outside help, I partnered with another agency called Menfluential to handle all sponsorships. So instead of trying to, negotiate with sponsors and set up deals, basically this company, that's all they do. They just negotiate and find sponsorship deals for bloggers like me. And since they're really good at it, they were able to find more of them, higher quality ones, and higher paying ones.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. And Brock, how would one find a network like Menfluential? Because I guess it's kind of a network that really fits your website and your niche. Yeah,
there are a lot of them now, and I think that we're going to see more and more like niche, I guess, advertising or influencer networks popping up. But there are already networks or agencies, for every major niche, like food blogging or parent blogging or fitness, health, style. So I found this one just through a friend, that we met at a conference about style blogging, about men's style, and they invited me to join their network, which at the time was very small, but they're growing really quickly. So I'd say, depending on what industry you're in, obviously you could do some Googling. You could ask other bloggers if they have any partners like that, or you go to some conferences and just try to meet people. But you should be able to find a network that's relevant to you. And, I would highly recommend at least giving it a shot.
Mm-hmm. That's also very interesting, because I've never actually heard of that or thought of that. I thought there's only like a few really big advertising networks, and I never thought that we could actually go into niche specific advertiser networks. That's something new to me.
Yeah, well, I think it is a relatively new thing, because I think big companies are starting to realize that their ad dollars, their marketing dollars might be better spent with bloggers and YouTubers and social media people versus magazines and newspapers and billboards. So that tide is, coming in slowly. But then the small companies, there's more small businesses, especially in my industry of clothing and grooming products and all that. There's more small businesses than ever because the barrier of entry is so low. So these businesses don't have, $30,000 for a GQ ad, but they might have a couple $1,000s to work with a blogger on a blog post. So so I think the agencies that can figure out how to navigate that world and like manage all that for bloggers are going to be pretty successful. I mean, it's a super simple model. They basically, if they find a sponsor and they negotiate a deal, they take a percentage. So the better they do, the more they work, the more everybody makes. So it's kind of a win-win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Mm-hmm. And as you said, that we'll probably be seeing more and more of these smaller companies who concentrate on something very specific and cater to a specific audience.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that the really major brands will start to work with these companies more and more going forward. Like, for example, I just did something with Old Spice, and that's probably like the biggest name brand that I've worked with. And I don't think that would have happened a few years ago, for a website my size. So that's really cool to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And Brock, without the actual money, let's not talk about the money at this point. Let's talk about the actual website, The Modest Man. Sure. Yeah, okay, it's great to have a proper network or optimizing your site for income and all of that. But the website itself needs to move forward, and it needs to grow, and you need to have more and more visitors. What has been one of the biggest, I guess, contributors to the growth of your own website and the growth of your traffic?
Well, I think early on, I did a lot of guest posting and writing for other sites. And when you do that sort of thing, it's kind of like planting seeds, you know. And sometimes if you do that kind of work that gets links back to your site and, you know, some referral traffic, if you lay that SEO groundwork, then a lot of the times, a couple of years later, you really start to see the results for that. So, you know, if your strategy like mine is to try to get organic traffic, rather than, you know, social media traffic or buying traffic, sometimes it just takes a while, you know, for you to see results. So I think that's part of it. The other part of it is, especially this year, I've been really trying to focus on creating really high quality, really in-depth content. I think that more and more, we're going to see search engines favoring in-depth content, and they already have, you know, Google already has a way to literally favor in-depth content, like an article that's of a certain length and certain quality, and just show it higher up in the search results. So what I try to do is, when I sit down to create a piece of content, I try to think, can this be the best version of this content? Like, say the article is how to wear a blue suit, just for example. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of articles about that out there. So I would research it and look at all the other stuff that's already out there and say, can I create something better? And if I can't, you know, I don't want to write that article because there's already something good out there. So I think the way to get organic traffic these days is to pick a topic and really, you know, make sure that whatever you create, video, article, podcast, blog post, is like 10 times better than whatever is already out there. And if you do that and you use just basic on-page SEO, you know, you will get traffic even if it's a few months later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I agree with you on that one. And I've seen that happen a few times on my own blog, on my own articles, where I wrote a blog post, and when I Googled my main keyword phrase, I saw that I was competing with mostly like entrepreneur.com, inc.com, Forbes, you know. They were taking over the front page of Google for the main keyword phrase. But when I wrote my article and nothing happened all that much, I mean, I got a lot of shares on social media and people were talking about it. But it took a few months, and then I was ranking between those big guys at what people say, you know, anywhere from position number 2 to position number 9, but on the front page of Google. And basically the blog post was about, it was like 30 best books for entrepreneurs, something like that, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the main point was, I guess why that article outranked the bigger guys. It's exactly what you said, because my content was simply better and more detailed than theirs. If you look at their list, entrepreneur.com, let's say, they had like 3 or 4 spots on the front page. One of them being like 5 best books for entrepreneurs, 10 best books, and things like that. And it was basically just a title of the book, and it said, you must read it, and here is your Amazon link to buy it. That was pretty much it, right?
Right.
So I wrote like a list of 30 books, and I made sure to describe actually every book separately and explain why I think it's a good fit for entrepreneurs. So all I did was, just like you said, in-depth, more detailed content than anyone else ranking on the front page. And that was the only reason I did that, because I knew that I had to have a lot better content than anyone out there for the same subject in order to have a chance at least to rank well. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I've had that exact experience that you're describing with several articles this past year. And it's, once you do it a couple times, you realize that it's a process. It's a repeatable process. And the cool thing is, you know, that actually forces you to really create good content, which, you know, isn't easy to do sometimes. Like, it's much easier to say top 10 books for entrepreneurs and just put the title on the picture like all the big sites do. Yeah. And kind of rely on your brand and your domain authority to get people to read it. But if you're a smaller site, yeah, you have to go above and beyond that. And I've done that same thing with I have an article about watches, about socks, about men's blogs that all rank, number one for pretty big search terms, just because, so far there's no better article about that subject. Now, someone might come along and, write something better or produce something better than that, and that's fine. I mean, I encourage that, because whatever helps people the most. But I think that technique, I've heard it called the skyscraper technique. Build skyscrapers, not just buildings. I think is a very solid technique to use in 2017, especially if you don't have a lot of money to spend on traffic.
Yeah. There you go. I agree with that. And this is the advice that I try to give people as often as I can, because once again, just like for you, like in your case or in my case, when people look at the front Google page and they're like, oh, I can't possibly compete with those big guys. And my answer is always like, well, yes, you can, and you can do it completely free. It just depends on how much you want it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it depends how much, you're willing to work. And then you can get to the point, like one thing I've started doing very recently is paying professional writers on a pretty limited basis. I've just started testing this out, but I think you can get to the point where you can, buy content that will rank highly, but it's not the kind of thing that you're going to spend $50 on like Upwork or something and expect an article to, really bring in a lot of traffic. So what I've been experimenting with lately is like finding really, really good writers, journalists, and paying them, what they're worth to produce an article. And I think that if you give them the right direction in terms of like the theme of the article, what words, what keywords you're targeting, and headers and titles and stuff like that, and then after they write it, if you take the article and just do a little bit of on-page SEO, I think you can also get really good results like that. But of course, that might be a technique that you use down the road after you have a little bit extra money to spend on the writers.
Yeah, exactly. And before we move on to the next subject, I'd like to do a little recap here. And this one, for those hundreds and thousands of people that sent me email asking me how long it takes to make money online. How long does it take to make hundreds of thousands? And it's all really, really different for everyone. And that's what I tell people. I can't tell you, I don't know. Some people take a week to make their first income. Some people take a year to make their first dollar. There's just so many variables to that, and there's no one specific answer. However, in Brock's case, Brock, if I'm not mistaken, you started The Modest Man in 2012, right?
Yeah, it was mid 2012.
So mid 2012, 2015, he made 36 grand. In 2016, Brock made 89,000 from that blog. So guys, here is a really good example of someone who's actually really open about his income and how long it took to make that kind of money. If you're listening to this podcast and you've been one of those people curious about how long it takes and what are the possibilities, well, there you go. I hope you're enjoying this episode so far, because all the details are in here, and that could be a great example of how long it takes and how much you can make.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty typical for a blog to take at least a couple of years to really start making meaningful income. I think that, looking back, could have definitely done it a little faster, but it's not an overnight thing, and I get that question a lot too, and it's a valid question. I mean, you want to know if what you're doing is going to pay off eventually, but I think one of the crucial things you have to realize going into it is, if you're doing it just for the money, you probably won't have the stamina, to do it for long enough to actually make money. So I think you have to make sure to pick whatever you're doing, whether it's YouTube, blog, podcast, make sure to pick something you're actually interested in, because you're going to have a year or maybe 2 years, or even 3 years where, you don't feel like you're getting paid what you're worth. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with you. And I've seen way too many people fail for that specific reason. They were in it just for the money, and when a year passes or half a year and they don't see that money, that's when they quit, because they thought it's some magic shortcut to millions, which it really isn't. It's just another business.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Brock. So I'd like to move on to something a little bit different for the rest of this podcast. Well, first of all, let's begin with me asking you about the Modest Man once again. Why are you doing the income reports, and why are you so open with, with the income that you're producing, with who you're working with, and what exactly you're doing to make more money from your site?
Yeah, well, one reason is I'm fascinated by the world of online business, and I think that usually when I meet people and you have the what do you do conversation, I find it kind of hard to explain what I do, and a lot of people either don't really understand what running a blog is, or they know what blogging is, but the first question is always, do you make money off that, or how do you make money off that, or how much? And that's people don't ask how much, but that's what they want to know. I mean, that's, we're all curious about that. So I chose to be transparent with the income. I think maybe a year ago I started doing that, and it was an experiment. I wrote one post called "How Does This Blog Make Money?" and it turned out to be really popular. So I kept doing it, and it's not like a monthly thing. I do it every quarter. Just to keep people updated, and people seem to enjoy it. So I think that, since I enjoy putting those together and people seem to enjoy reading them, it's just something I'm going to keep doing. I also thought that I saw this other blog called Pinch of Yum. It's a food blog. It's really big, actually. They're like super successful, and they basically started doing these income reports for the same reason a few years ago, and they ended up creating a whole new business called Food Blogger Pro, which they help other food bloggers make more money, become full-time bloggers. And they do that with like courses and a WordPress theme and a plugin and, all sorts of stuff. So I kind of thought that this would be a good way to test the waters to see if that's something I could do later on down the road with fashion and style bloggers. So that's kind of something I'm, still thinking about. I haven't really done that yet, but I thought the income reports would be a good way to test the waters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And you said that when you did your very first income report, the post when you explained how the blog makes money, it went pretty popular. And I get that too, especially, in general, people are curious about, how that happens. But then again, you have man fashion blog, which means that, I'm gonna generalize here, but a lot of guys who, let's say, will be paying attention to their fashion, how they dress, how they look, how they present themselves. I would imagine that those people are more open to opportunities like that. They're more curious in general about even making money online.
I think I agree with what you're saying.
I can't find my words.
Yeah, well, it all falls under the umbrella of self-improvement, So like caring about how you look is just one aspect of like self-improvement, personal development, kind of just optimizing your life, and I think, someone who cares about one area would also care about another area. So I see a ton of crossover with people who are into, upgrading their look or their fitness or their health or social skills, and also who are interested in, upgrading their finances and or starting a business or just taking control of their life in that area too. So I agree with what you're saying. I think it can sound like a generalization, but I think there's definitely some truth to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as you said, I guess it all falls under that self-improvement umbrella, because it's all part of self-improvement: the wealth, the health, the social.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so you saw that this is working out well for you, the income reports. People really enjoy them, and I've looked at a few of your income reports, and I see a lot of activities and people asking questions and commenting and stuff like that. So I guess this is why you've decided to start your second blog.
Yeah, so I was thinking about, I don't want people to be confused when they come to the Modest Man and think, why are we, reading something about blogging or business or money on a style blog? And I didn't want that to take over, and to just confuse people about what the site is all about, because it's not about that. It's about style.
Yeah.
But I find myself wanting to write about, the business side of things, and I liked putting together the income reports, and I wanted to do more of them. So yeah, I started this other blog, and I haven't really, promoted it too much or launched it or anything. It's more just a place that I can put content right now, but it's called Full-Time Blog. And, so basically I'm doing monthly income reports instead of quarterly, and then also trying to write at least one really good post a month, that can help any bloggers, but especially fashion bloggers, to get more traffic and to basically make more money. So I'll do stuff like, on-page SEO for style bloggers, or compare some of the major affiliate programs like Amazon Reward Style, and just share what my experiences have been, using both of them for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting, and I think it's a good way to kind of separate what you just explained, to still have the chance to write all of that you want to write, and to share a lot more details on the income side of the blog without compromising your actual main fashion blog, style blog, because it's, as you mentioned, still really, really different from actual making money and, blogging and SEO and so on.
Yeah, exactly. And I figure, if someone sees an income report on The Modest Man, and they really like it, they can go over to Full-Time Blog and subscribe and follow that one, at the same time, or maybe just follow that one if that's what they're interested in. So yeah, it's, like I said, it's kind of an experiment, but it's been fun so far. And I think it eventually could even, grow into, its own little, business with separate revenue streams and stuff like that. Because obviously there's a lot of money to be made in the, blogging about blogging, world. But the thing is, I didn't want to get into that until I had actually, made money, like a full-time income from a blog that has nothing to do with business, or because there's this trend. You see all these blogs popping up that are, how to make money online. And it just really gets me every time I see one of those, that someone started a blog about how to make money, but they've never actually done anything besides that blog. It's just, I don't think that's very cool. So yeah, I didn't really want to do that. I didn't really want to teach anybody about what I know about blogging until I was actually qualified to do that.
Yeah, that's sounds very legit, man. And I agree with you 100% on this one. And that too, I also get people asking me, basically approaching me and telling me, what, I've been thinking, I can't really find a niche. I don't know what I want to blog about. So I'll just start a blog about making money online. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. So like, how much money have you made so far? Like, how are you generating income online? They're like, well, I never have, but I hope this blog will help me. Yeah. And it pisses me off, and like I can't get pissed off and explode there in their face, so I'm smiling and I usually tell them exactly that. I'm like, well, I don't think it's the best idea. And not because Extra Paycheck is in a way a blog about blogging. I mean, it's not about blogging, it's about online business in general. But I did start that, just like you, after I have started several successful niche websites, and I started making, a lot more money, let's say, that my job was paying me. So I didn't have a job anymore because all I was doing was niche websites selling actual physical products. And when I figured out how that works, and I was, when I got to a good income level, that's when I was like, you know what, I could share that knowledge with others and start the Extra Paycheck brand. But once again, only when I already knew what was happening and when I was able to prove that I could earn the money, not the other way around. I just don't get it either.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, and it's definitely, whenever you find something, whenever you find a blog, and including a lot of the popular ones, and the biggest ones about business and making money and stuff, there you gotta ask yourself and do a little research and think, how did this person actually make a living? But before they were doing this, because if you look at, for example, and it's no offense at all, because I really like Pat Flynn. I've never met him in real life, but we've emailed a couple times, and I think he's a very smart guy, obviously extremely hardworking. But if you look at his income report, he has niche sites and other side businesses, but that's like 10% of the income. And the rest, most of it is affiliate sales on business products like Bluehost hosting and email services and, social media tools and all this other stuff. So, if you're going to follow, his instructions for how to make money, make sure you're looking at what he's doing to make money outside of that other stuff. So look at his niche sites, look at his software, and all his other revenue streams. But, I think there's way too many blogs right now making a living off of, Bluehost affiliate sales, which isn't, it can be done, but I don't think that's a good path to take.
Yeah, totally. And that's something that we'll still see a lot. And honestly, I feel like there's a little bit less of that than there was 9-10 years ago. But yeah, there's still a lot of people who are taking advantage of that, or trying. And it's unfortunate. And the saying, they say there's a sucker born every minute or every day, or whatever the saying is. And it's true. And it, still surprises me sometimes when people tell me how they got scammed, how they got these products and blah, blah, blah. And it does surprise me in one way. But then I think, well, you know what? In 2007, when I was just starting learning about online marketing, I've been scammed quite a few times on products that were completely worthless. And I fell for them because I didn't know any better, because the whole concept of online marketing, online business was brand new to me. So these new people who are just starting to hear about online business now, they're in exactly the same boat. They've never heard of it before. They're brand new, and they're easily influenced into buying some product or whatever, paying for some course that's not worth it. And, it's not really their fault. They just don't know better. They don't expect that there's that many blogs and that many products, and that most of them are actually junk. When you have to filter through a lot and to find something that's of value and that is actually worth your time. Yeah,
I did the same thing when I was first starting out. I remember I read 4 Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss and became obsessed with this whole world of internet marketing and passive income, and and that was when Warrior Forum and, those kinds of sites were really big, and there was just a lot of really bad products and a lot of people basically just trying to make money off the idea of making money. And it's so alluring. And I think that's why you see so much of it, is because it's, just humans were so curious about how to make money and how other people make money and how can we make more. And it's just such an alluring idea that it's an easy sell, and so that's why it's kind of tempting to get into that. But yeah, I would, if you're just starting out, there is something, you probably have some interest or some skill or some experience that makes you unique, that you could either teach other people about or entertain people with, or create content about, in some way. And I would try to focus on that, and I don't think we need more business blogs, from people who haven't run businesses. I think we need, more. I think there's plenty of room for new niche sites and YouTube channels, and you just have to think about what makes you unique and what kind of content could you create that other people couldn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree with you, Brock. That makes a lot of sense. And even in 2017, I think there's more and more opportunity, because that's another thing that I get approached with often and off. People saying that, well, it's too late. It's 2017. Everything has been done online. There is no way I could start a niche website and still make money. What's your take on that?
I think that people have been saying that every year, and I think they'll continue to say that. I think the only thing that changes is different platforms come and go. Snapchat is new, and YouTube is blown up. But content will always be around. No matter what platform. I think written content like blogs and articles will never die. Videos will never die. So yeah, it's definitely not too late. In fact, I think there's more opportunity, even though it's more crowded now. I think there's still more opportunity than ever, because there's more people on the internet than there ever was. And there's more people using YouTube as a search engine, than ever. So yeah, I think it's definitely more competitive now, but the internet is really, really good at sorting out content and making sure that the best stuff rises to the top. So I don't think it's too late at all. If I had to start over right now, I definitely would.
Yeah, totally agree with you on this one. And that's usually one of my main arguments. Yes, there's a lot of competition online, but every single day there are thousands and thousands of, if not millions of new users to the internet. And somebody has to market to them. Somebody has to help them out. Somebody has to give them the information.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also just the fact there's so much content and so many new people. There's also just all these opportunities for different ideas. Like yeah, you could make a website or YouTube channel or something where you have to create content, but there's also all these awesome new websites that are really good at sorting content. You know, I mean, take like some of the biggest websites in the world, like Reddit, for example. They don't, you know, they're just a platform that people can create content and then sort through content. So they don't actually, you know, create stuff. They're not like a blog or a newspaper. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for websites that aren't necessarily blogs or, you know, content generators, but more like curators, you know, and sites that help people find the best content.
Yeah, seriously. And this is one of the things, as you just mentioned, ideas. Every like week or let's say not every week, but every month, I hear about this new, amazing, super interesting platform or, you know, website or something new that came online. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I would have never thought of starting that because it just, you know, not something I would start. And then you hear that these guys started it because they had this issue and they wanted this kind of product or a blog and they couldn't find it. So they started and now, boom, they're making money. So, you know, it's not always about making a blog, as you also mentioned. It's about it's about new ideas and just putting something out there, because it's not just about blogging. It's not just about writing your content. There's so many other different opportunities out there. And, you know, I think the accessibility is there right now. It's a lot easier to actually get through all that noise and get something out there because of all the platforms, of all the things made available to us at, you know, very low cost and sometimes often actually completely free. Just you need to have the idea and you could get it out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could really anything you can think of these days. I think it's easier to do than it ever was. Like if you have an idea for any product, you know, I know a guy who had a beard, and he thought, you know, I can't find any good beard oil. And this was a few years ago. You know, now this is blown up, this industry for like beard grooming and beard oil and those kinds of products. But he was one of the first to think of it. And, you know, now he's got 10 employees and multi-million-dollar company, and they sell, you know, beard oil. And of course, they've expanded a little bit, but it's the barrier of entry is so low because it's easier now than it ever was to test something out, you know, to take your idea and just test it out using the internet, even if it's a very traditional idea, like just selling a product, you know. So I don't think there's, you know, I don't think there's any reason not to pursue an idea you have because you think it's too competitive or too expensive or anything like that.
Yeah, totally. All right, Brock, as we're approaching the end of this episode, I'd like to ask you, well, now, what do you think these days would be your biggest advice to a beginner entrepreneur? What is that one thing that they should seriously pay attention to and pay most of the attention to?
Well, I would say it's important to figure out like why you want to run your own business or you know, start something, no matter what kind of business it is. I think it's important, first of all, to make sure that you have a reason, but then also to make sure you have a really motivating reason, because like we've talked about, it might take a while to get some traction. And so, you know, you have to figure out why you're doing it. And it might be that you want to help people. It might be that you just can't stand working a 9-to-5 job and you have to have the freedom. You know, that's what it is for me. It's more of like this idea of freedom. It might be competition. It might be, you know, fame and notoriety. Whatever it is, you gotta think, you know, why am I doing this? Why do I want to do this? And is that reason motivating enough to keep me going for the long haul? Because otherwise, you know, you'll probably stop too soon. You know, stop before you reach the finish line. So I think that's important. And then when you do start, just make sure that whatever idea you have, and whether it's creating content or a product or whatever you have, just make sure it's unique in some way. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of competition out there. And so, for example, if you're going to start a blog, make sure it's super niche focused, at least at the beginning. And I think one good way to do that is, take whatever idea you have and add a couple qualifiers to it. It's like in my case, it would be a style blog, which is very generic, a style blog for men, which is a little better, and then a style blog for shorter men, which is very niche, and that's why I've been able to find success with the Modest Man, is because it's super niche. So I would say that, make sure you have a very compelling reason for starting a business in the first place, and then make sure you have a really unique niche so you can stand out at the beginning, and, you can always expand later on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, great advice, man. Thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, once again, really, really great advice. And this is super, super important when starting or, already growing a business. People should really pay attention to those points. Great stuff, man.
Well, thanks for having me on again.
Brock, just before you leave, once again, share your link so people could see what you do. Maybe, some people in the audience need some style advice, or maybe some others need some advice on starting a blog for a living. Where can they find those resources?
Sure. You can go to themodestman.com, and that's my style blog and my main business. And then fulltimeblog.com is where I talk about the business side of blogging.
All right. Thanks so much for sharing, Brock. Thank you for sharing your experiences, sharing your advice, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Extra Paycheck Podcast. As usual, I will be putting up show notes page at extrapodcast.com/96. This is where you will be able to find a lot more information, some links and resources that we mentioned in today's episode. Also, head over to extrapodcast.com/iTunes, subscribe to the show, leave a review and a rating, which will help tremendously. Thank you so much once again for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next Monday.